So recently, during this pandemic and during the, all the protests that's been going on in the streets, a word that's been kind of popping up in my newsfeed a lot is the word solidarity. And it's a powerful word because the idea is that somehow we gather as a collective for a cause. And so we see solidarity in terms of wearing a mask, hand sanitizers, for maybe a social reason. But every time I think of the word solidarity, I always associate that word with John Paul II, because John Paul II in 1979 had visited and came to Poland during the communist era, and he sort of, in a sense, and millions gathered. This was the first time he was coming as Pope, and during that period, there were millions gathered, and he prayed for the Holy Spirit to descend upon them, and it, in a sense, gave that sense of that renewal or that energy to really stand up against the communist regime. And he sort of gave that religious and that spiritual backbone to be united. And then all of a sudden, in 1981, we had what we call the Solidarność movement, or the Solidarity movement, with the Gdańsk shipyard, where the workers there protested because of the rise of prices, but not the rise of wages. And so in a sense, they gave, the political solidarity during that period. And in a sense, they brought down the Communist Party because of the unitedness between all of them, that they really protested and were able to make a great social change. And that when the Communist Party eventually did collapse in 1989, the Solidarity movement was able to be transferred into a real political and governmental change within the country. And this union, the Solidarity movement, had about 10 million members, which was amazing during that time period. And it shows what the power that a collective can have to enact change. And I think about the Solidarity movement, I think about John Paul II, and I think about the lessons that we can kind of learn from them for us today. In a sense that it kind of shows that we live in the West where there's this kind of hyper individualism. And I think that during this social distancing, during this quarantine period, I think we kind of realized that it's something quite not right about that. That there's something within us that yearns to be together, to have that human connection with other people. And that this whole social distancing has been, I think, very difficult for all of us. So even though we've been united in solidarity with the healthcare workers, with all the essential workers of trying to fight this disease, it kind of showed to us that we yearn for community, we yearn for solidarity. And even with the riots, the same thing, and how powerful that we want change to occur in our life. But I kind of wondered that how long can these moments of solidarity last? We've seen how united we've been in some level amongst all of each other in this time period. But pandemics come and go. Social issues come and go. But what remains? What kind of continues to give us that sense of solidarity with one another? And I think that the only answer to that question is God. God is the only person, the only, that can really unite us, that can really bring us a solidarity that remains from season to season. And that's why I think it's so important that when churches are beginning to reopen, when society is kind of turning the switch on button again, that we need to come back to church. That I think it's kind of time to come home, because I think we kind of learn in this time period that we can't do it alone, and that we need to come together as a community to be in solidarity with one another, and that solidarity finds its true presence, that true power in the Eucharist, where Christ is present, where He reveals the communion of persons of the Trinity to us, but also reveals the community that we have with one another. And so I ask you, that to kind of search your heart and see, where do I find that yearning for community? And I would just ask you to come home, to come to Mass, and to be united with God and with the Church.